In the ancient forests of Eastern Europe, where mist clung to treetops like spectral fingers, stood Castle Lunaroth. For 8 centuries, it had been home to the alpha vampire queen, Seline. The structure wasn't merely stone and mortar, but a testament to her power. Massive black spires that pierced the night sky, walls decorated with the emblems of fallen kingdoms, and windows of stained glass that told stories of her conquests. Tonight, however, the castle felt different. The usual eerie melodies played by court musicians had been silenced. Torches burned low, casting elongated shadows across the grand hall. The vampire courtiers whispered among themselves, their immortal faces etched with an unfamiliar emotion. Fear. "How long has she been ill?" asked Baron Dravik, his voice barely audible as he leaned toward Countess Morgrave. 3 months now, the Countess replied, her blood-red gown rustling as she shifted uncomfortably. The royal physicians are baffled. They say it's unlike anything they've seen in our kind. At the far end of the hall, behind ornate double doors guarded by warriors with obsidian armor, lay the royal chamber. Inside, Queen Seline reclined on a massive bed draped with black silk. Her legendary silver-white hair, once so luminous it seemed to capture moonlight, now hung limp around her shoulders. Her alabaster skin had taken on an ashen quality, and the veins beneath showed through like dark rivers. "Your Majesty, you must feed again," urged Elias, her most trusted advisor, a vampire nearly as old as she was. His gaunt face betrayed his concern as he offered his wrist. Seline's eyes, still piercing despite her weakened state, flashed with irritation. "We have tried that, Elias. Your blood, the blood of nobles, even the rare blood of children with the sight. Nothing sustains me for more than a few hours." She attempted to rise only to fall back against the pillows. This small exertion left her gasping. For a creature who could once leap across castle walls and command storms with a mere thought, this frailty was worse than any torture. "The witches of the Carpathian Circle have sent word." Elias continued, unrolling a parchment sealed with wax the color of dried blood. "They believe this illness is connected to the crimson eclipse that approaches. They call it the Immortal's Bane, a cosmic alignment that occurs once every millennium, weakening those who have defied death too long. Seline's laugh was hollow, so the universe itself seeks to humble me. After all, I've survived." The queen closed her eyes, remembering the Crusaders' blessed weapons had failed to end her. The witch hunter's fires couldn't burn her. Even the rebellion of her own kind, led by her jealous sister 3 centuries ago, had only strengthened her reign when she emerged victorious. And now, to be defeated by her own blood turning against her, it was unthinkable. A commotion outside interrupted her dark thoughts. The doors flew open as Dragomir, captain of her guard, entered with uncharacteristic haste. "Forgive the intrusion, Your Majesty," he said, bowing deeply. "The court necromancer has arrived with disturbing news." At her nod, a hooded figure glided into the chamber. Even among vampires, necromancer Valerian inspired dread. His eyes were milky white, seeing beyond the veil between life and death. "My queen," he began, his voice like stones grinding together. "I have consulted the ancient text and communed with the spirits of our ancestors. This illness will not pass naturally. It feeds on your immortal essence and will continue until nothing remains." The silence that followed was absolute. "How long?" Seline asked finally. 3 months, perhaps 4. By winter solstice, you will be no more." Elias stepped forward, outrage on his face. "There must be a cure. Our queen has ruled for 800 years. Valerian inclined his head. "There is one possibility, though it defies all vampire lore. According to the Codex Sanguinis, the blood text of the first ones," Seline interrupted, surprising them with her knowledge. "I thought it lost during the Great Burning." "Not lost, merely hidden. It speaks of a rare phenomenon, a mortal whose blood contains the vite lux, the light of life. Such blood could heal even your affliction." Dragomir scoffed. "Human blood is our sustenance, not our salvation." "Not just any human," Valerian countered. "One whose bloodline carries ancient magic, dormant but pure. One who offers freely without coercion or fear. The text is specific. Only that which is given with compassion can heal what pride has corrupted." Seline's eyes narrowed. "You suggest my illness is punishment for pride." "I merely relate what is written, Your Majesty." The queen sat in contemplation before making her decision. When she spoke, Her voice carried the authority that had commanded legions. "Issue a royal decree throughout my territories. Any mortal whose blood can cure me shall receive this castle and all its treasures as reward." She silenced Elias's protest with a glance. "Let it be known that I, Seline, Alpha Queen of the Night Court, have made this vow." In the village of Ravenbrook, 30 miles from the castle, Adrien Vasilelescu looked up from his work at the blacksmith's forge as the royal messengers rode through the square, trumpets blaring. The decree was read aloud as villagers gathered, their faces a mixture of fear and fascination. Adrien listened with unusual interest. Unlike his neighbors who quickly dispersed, whispering protective prayers, he remained, watching the retreating forms of the vampire messengers. "You're not thinking of going, are you?" asked Mira, the apothecary's daughter, appearing beside him. "Those who enter the Queen's castle rarely return." Adrien wiped the soot from his hands. "I'm just a blacksmith's apprentice. Why would the blood of someone like me save a vampire queen?" But as he spoke, he touched the strange birthmark on his wrist, a crescent moon with what looked like a small flame within, the mark his mother had always told him to keep hidden, claiming it was a blessing and a curse from ancestors long forgotten. That night, Adrien dreamed of silver hair and a castle in shadows, of a queen whose eyes held centuries of loneliness, and of his own blood flowing like liquid light. He woke at dawn, his decision made. If you are enjoying this story, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave the name of your city in the comments. The village of Ravenbrook awakened to a misty autumn morning, unaware that one of its own had made a decision that would alter the course of an ancient realm. Adrien Vasilelescu moved through his small cottage with quiet determination, packing a worn leather satchel with meager provisions, a loaf of bread, dried apples, a water skin, and a small knife his father had given him before succumbing to fever 3 winters ago. He paused before a cracked mirror, studying his reflection. At 25, his face still held youthful softness despite years of labor at the forge. Dark hair fell in waves to his shoulders, and his eyes, an unusual amber color, held a wisdom beyond his years. The villagers often said those eyes marked him as different, though none knew how right they were. Adrien rolled up his sleeve, examining the crescent moon birthmark on his wrist. His mother's words echoed in his memory. "Our bloodline carries old magic, Adrien. Before there were churches and crosses, our ancestors communed with forces others feared. She had died when he was 12, taking most of their family secrets with her. All she left him was a small book written in a language he couldn't read, and a warning never to reveal his mark to strangers. Why am I doing this?" he whispered to the empty room. The Queen's decree promised wealth beyond imagination, yet gold had never motivated him. Something else pulled him toward Castle Lunaroth, a strange sense of destiny he couldn't explain. As Adrien stepped outside, Mira was waiting, her face tight with worry. "You're actually going," she said. "It wasn't a question, I have to. You'll die, Adrien. The nobles who have gone, Lord Blackthorn's son, the merchant Grior and his guards, none have returned." Adrien secured his satchel. "Perhaps they went for the wrong reasons. And what are the right ones?" she challenged, stepping closer. "The vampire queen has drained our village for centuries. My grandmother says she once took 50 children during the long winter. Those are old stories. They're history," Mira insisted. "Whatever illness plagues her is justice for countless lives taken." Adrien couldn't argue. The queen's taxation of blood had been part of village life for generations. 3 volunteers, each solstice, returning weak but alive, bearing silver coins for their sacrifice. Yet something told him there was more to Seline than village tale suggested. "I'll return," he promised, though uncertainty colored his voice. Mira pressed something into his palm, a small glass vial filled with dark liquid, wolfbane and rowan berries. "It won't kill her kind, but it will slow one down if you need to escape." Before he could respond, she kissed his cheek and hurried away. The journey to Castle Lunaroth took 3 days. Adrien avoided the main road, taking forest paths his mother had shown him years ago. The woods grew denser and darker as he approached vampire territory, the trees more ancient, their branches intertwining overhead like gnarled fingers. On the 3rd day, a heavy fog descended, and the temperature dropped unnaturally. Adrien knew he had crossed the boundary into the Queen's domain. Strange eyes watched from hollow trees, and twice he heard inhuman laughter following his footsteps. As twilight fell, Castle Lunaroth emerged from the mist, a monumental shadow against the darkening sky. Up close, it was even more imposing than stories described. Gargoyles perched along its battlements, their stone faces contorted in silent screams, banners bearing the Queen's insignia. A silver moon devouring a star fluttered in the chill wind. Adrien sensed he had stumbled into a conflict far older and deeper than he could comprehend. Elias broke the charred silence. What matters now is whether his blood can heal you, your majesty. The Codex Sanguinis was specific. Only freely given blood with the light of life can cure the Immortal's bane. Seline returned to her bed, sitting with regal posture despite her obvious fatigue. Then let us put it to the test. She extended her hand toward Adrien. Come, Adrien approached, hyper-aware of every step across the ancient stones. The Queen's bed was elevated on a dais, forcing him to climb 3 steps to reach her. The symbolism wasn't lost on him, a commoner ascending to the level of royalty, if only temporarily. Your wrist, she instructed. Adrien hesitated, not from fear, but from the strange sense that once this line was crossed, nothing would ever be the same. Nevertheless, he extended his arm. The marked wrist upturned. Selena took his hand in both of hers. Her touch was cool, but not the deathly cold of folklore. It felt more like marble warmed by distant sunlight. I have tasted the blood of kings and conquerors, she said softly. Of saints and sinners across 8 centuries. What secrets does yours hold, I wonder? Without further preamble, her fangs extended, elegant and sharp as finest daggers. Adrien felt a momentary sting as they pierced his wrist precisely where the crescent moon birthmark glowed brightest. The effect was instantaneous and extraordinary. As the first drop of Adrien's blood touched Seline's tongue, a visible shudder passed through her entire body. The darkened veins beneath her skin began to pulse with golden light, as though his blood carried liquid sunshine through her immortal system. Her eyes widened, their darkness momentarily illuminated from within. Elias and Valerian watched in astonishment as color returned to the Queen's face. The ashen gray gave way to luminous alabaster, her silver hair regaining its legendary luster with each passing second. Adrien felt a curious sensation, not weakness or pain as he'd expected, but a warm current flowing between them, as though an ancient circuit had been completed. His birthmark blazed brighter, its light stretching tendrils across their joined arms. When Selene finally withdrew her fangs, she looked transformed. Though she had taken only a few small sips, the change was remarkable. The Queen, who had been dying minutes ago, now radiated power and vitality. Impossible, Illas whispered. Valerian nodded slowly. Not impossible, prophesied. Adrien swayed slightly, but not from blood loss, from the overwhelming sense of destiny crashing over him. Seline steadied him with a hand that now felt warm against his skin. What you carry in your veins, she said with newfound strength in her voice, is beyond precious. It is miraculous. Before Adrien could respond, the chamber doors burst open without ceremony. Baron Dravik strode in, his aristocratic features contorted with outrage. Is this a jest? He demanded, gesturing dismissively at Adrien. While nobles and warriors wait to offer their ancient bloodlines, you entertain a common blacksmith. Seline rose to her full height, power emanating from her like heat from a forge. Baron Dravk instinctively took a step back, belatedly realizing his error. This common blacksmith has accomplished what your ancient bloodline could not. Baron, she replied, her voice deadly calm. His blood flows through me now, and with it my strength returns. The Baron's eyes darted from Selena to Adrien, disbelief giving way to calculation. Then the decree stands fulfilled. He has earned the castle and its treasures. Indeed, Selene confirmed, turning to Adrien. According to my word, all this is now yours. Adrien looked around at the opulent chamber, at the vastness of the castle that surrounded them, and felt only bewilderment. I didn't come for a castle, your majesty. So then why did you come? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Because Adrien hesitated, searching for words to explain what he himself didn't fully understand. Because when I heard you were dying, I felt called to help, as though something in me recognized something in you. The Queen studied him with an intensity that seemed to peer into his very soul. In that moment, something passed between them, a recognition deeper than words could express. The silence was broken by Valerian's raspy voice. The connection has begun. His blood has not merely healed you temporarily, my queen. It has bound you. Bound? Adrien and Seline asked simultaneously. The Codex speaks of such bonds. The necromancer explained. When guardian blood freely mixes with alpha vampire essence, it creates a connection beyond physical healing. Your strengths, your vulnerabilities, they are now shared. Baron Dravk's face darkened with this revelation. A peasant bound to our queen. This is an abomination. No, countered Elias, who had been quietly observing. This is salvation. Without his blood, our queen would perish before the winter solstice. As they argued, Adrien felt a strange sensation, a shadowy awareness of Seline's emotions filtering into his consciousness. Her confusion, her relief, her lingering pain, and beneath it all, a profound loneliness that echoed across centuries. From her sudden sharp glance, he knew she felt something similar, a window opening between their minds. Enough, Seline commanded, silencing the debate. Adrien Vasilelescu has saved my life. He has declined the castle as reward. Whatever connection now exists between us will be addressed privately. She turned to Adrien. You will remain here as my guest while we determine the nature of this bond. It wasn't a request, but Adrien found he had no desire to refuse the mystery of his birthmark, of his heritage, of this unexpected connection to the alpha vampire queen. All of it demanded answers he could only find within these castle walls. As you wish, your majesty, he replied, bowing slightly. What neither of them voiced was the unnerving certainty that they both felt that fate had just dealt a hand neither of them had anticipated in a game with rules written in blood. Dawn broke over Castle Lunaroth, though little natural light penetrated its ancient walls. Adrien awoke in chambers more luxurious than any he had ever known. A spacious room with tapestries depicting woodland hunts, furniture carved from dark wood, polished to a mirror shine, and a bed that seemed to swallow him in comfort. It was a far cry from his straw mattress in Ravenbrook. He sat up, touching the bandage around his wrist where Seline had fed. The wound had already healed, leaving only a faint mark alongside his birthmark. More surprising was how vigorous he felt. Stories told of victims left weak and pallid after vampire feedings. Yet he felt stronger than before, as though some dormant energy had awakened within him. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened to reveal a young woman, human, not vampire, carrying fresh clothing. The queen requests your presence in the Eastern Library once you're dressed, sir, she said, placing the garments on a nearby chair. I'm Lily, assigned to attend to your needs during your stay. Adrien nodded, still adjusting to being served. Thank you, Lily. How long have you been at the castle? Born here, sir. My mother serves in the kitchens, my father in the stables. 3 generations of my family have served the queen. This contradicted everything Adrien had believed about life in Seline's domain. You're not afraid of the vampires. Lily looked surprised. The queen's law protects her human servants. We give monthly blood tribute, just a small amount, but in return, we receive education, protection, and payment beyond what any village could offer. She tilted her head curiously. Is that not known outside these walls? No, Adrien admitted. We're told very different stories. After Lily departed, Adrien examined the clothing she'd brought, a nobleman's attire of deep blue with silver embroidery, far finer than anything he'd ever worn. Despite their obvious quality, they fit him perfectly, raising questions about how the queen had arranged this so quickly. Following Lily's directions, Adrien navigated the labyrinthine corridors of Castle Lunaroth. Unlike the previous night, the castle now buzzed with activity. Human servants bustled about their duties alongside vampire courtiers who regarded Adrien with undisguised curiosity. Word of his blood's effect on the queen had clearly spread. The Eastern Library was smaller than he expected. An octagonal room with a domed ceiling painted to resemble the night sky. Bookshelves lined 7 of the 8 walls filled with ancient tomes bound in leather and metals Adrien couldn't identify. The 8th wall featured a massive stained glass window depicting a lunar eclipse. Seline stood before this window, her restored vitality evident in her posture. Sunlight filtered through the colored glass, casting ruby and sapphire patterns across her silver-white hair. Beside her stood Elias, holding an ancient book with reverent care. Adrien Vasilelescu. Seline greeted him without turning. How did you sleep in the domain of monsters? There was a subtle challenge in her voice, perhaps even humor. "Better than expected, Your Majesty," he replied honestly, "though I'm still adjusting to being called sir." Now she turned, studying his appearance in the fine clothing. Something flickered in her expression. Approval, perhaps, or simple curiosity. "You look less a blacksmith today, yet that's still what I am." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Identity is more fluid than mortals believe. What we are born as is not always what we become." She gestured to a table where ancient manuscripts lay unfolded. "We've been researching your birthmark. The lunar flame appears in texts dating back to the first night when vampires emerged from the great darkness." Adrien approached cautiously, studying the yellowed parchments covered in unfamiliar script. "My mother left me a book written in a language I couldn't read. I always assumed it was family history, but it was more." Elias finished for him. "Guardian lore, most likely. May I see this book? It's in my satchel." "I'll bring it." Seline nodded to a servant who quickly departed to retrieve Adrien's belongings. Her dark eyes returned to Adrien with renewed intensity. "The necromancer was correct about our bond. I can sense your emotions, your physical state distantly, like hearing music from another room. Can you feel the same?" Adrien hesitated before nodding. Throughout the morning, he'd been aware of a strange undercurrent in his thoughts, emotions that didn't feel entirely his own. A regal melancholy, a curiosity sharp as a blade. "I feel echoes," he admitted. "Is this normal for vampires?" "No," Selina replied flatly. "In 8 centuries, I have never experienced such a connection, not even with those I sired myself." Elias cleared his throat diplomatically. "The text suggests this bond will strengthen with each feeding. Your blood continues to heal Her Majesty, but the connection deepens as well." A heavy silence fell between them. The implications were clear. Selina needed Adrien's blood to survive, yet each feeding would bind them more tightly together. The servant returned with Adrien's satchel. From it, he carefully extracted his mother's book, small, bound in faded brown leather, its pages yellowed with age. He placed it on the table beside the other manuscripts. Seline touched it with unexpected gentleness. "This script, its guardian high speech. Few living creatures can read it now." "Can you?" Adrien asked. "Some. It was essential diplomatic knowledge in the early centuries of my reign when guardians still held power in the eastern territories." She opened the book carefully, her fingers tracing the characters. "This appears to be a family chronicle, but also instructions." "Instructions for what?" Seline's expression grew troubled. "Blood magic, rituals to strengthen guardian abilities, communion with nature spirits, dream walking, healing through touch, practices forbidden after the Treaty of 7 Moons." Adrien struggled to reconcile this information with his simple upbringing. "My mother was a midwife and herbalist. She helped people, healed them. She never spoke of magic or rituals. Yet she hid your birthmark and preserved this book." Elias observed. "She knew enough to protect you." Before Adrien could respond, the library doors burst open. Baron Dravik entered, followed by a striking female vampire Adrien hadn't seen before. Her beauty was severe, her black hair arranged in an elaborate style that emphasized the sharpness of her features. "Your Majesty," Baron Dravik announced with barely concealed satisfaction. "Lady Lilith has arrived from the Western Territories with urgent news." Seline straightened, weariness evident in her posture. "Lady Lilith, your journey must be important to bring you so far from your husband's court." The newcomer offered a smile that never reached her eyes. "When I heard of your illness, dear sister, how could I not come? Family must stand together in times of crisis." Sister Adrien felt Seline's emotions spike through their bond, a complex mixture of affection, suspicion, and old pain. "How thoughtful," Selene replied coolly. "Yet I find myself much recovered." Lady Lilith's gaze shifted to Adrien, her assessment predatory. "So I've heard, a miraculous cure from unexpected quarters." She approached him with fluid grace. "And this is the savior, a mortal with guardian blood. How quaint." Adrien felt an instinctive desire to step back, but held his ground. "I'm Adrien Vasilelescu, my lady. He speaks," she exclaimed with mock surprise and with such confidence. "Tell me, little guardian, do you understand what you've stumbled into?" The power struggles that have shaped vampire politics for centuries. 2 guards in obsidian armor stood at the massive iron gates. Their pale faces betrayed no emotion as Adrien approached. "Another one," the taller guard remarked, his accent thick with an antiquity Adrien couldn't place. "What makes you think your blood is special?" "Blacksmith." Adrien wondered how the guard knew his trade until he glanced down at his callous hands, permanently stained with forge smoke. "I don't know if it is," Adrien answered honestly, "but I'm here to offer it freely." The guards exchanged looks before the second one spoke. The nobles bring ancient lineages, the scholars bring knowledge, the warriors bring strength. "What do you bring, villager?" Adrien hesitated before rolling up his sleeve, revealing his birthmark. It was a risk, but instinct told him it was necessary. The effect was immediate. Both guards stiffened, their eyes widening. "The lunar flame," whispered the first guard. "It's been centuries since." "Take him to the eastern chamber," interrupted the second, not the waiting hall with the others. The massive gates groaned open, and Adrien was led through a courtyard where Baroque fountains flowed with water tinted red. Inside, the castle revealed its macabre splendor. Corridors stretched like arteries through the structure, lined with tapestries depicting hunts and coronations from eras long past. Vampire quarters drifted through the halls, their movements unnaturally fluid, their curious gazes following Adrien. Unlike the petitioners gathered in the great hall, wealthy merchants, minor nobility, and even what appeared to be ambassadors from distant lands, Adrien was escorted through a series of smaller chambers until they reached an ornate door, guarded by a woman with silver hair cropped short, her armor bearing more elaborate engravings than the gate guards. "Captain Zet," the guard addressed her. "The villager bears the mark." Her eyes, violet and ancient, narrowed as she examined Adrien's wrist. Without a word, she dismissed the guards and opened the door herself. "The queen is greatly weakened," she said, her voice surprisingly gentle. "Speak only when addressed. Make no sudden movements." The chamber beyond was circular, its ceiling a dome of stained glass, depicting celestial bodies in eternal dance. Dozens of candles cast wavering light across velvet furnishings and shelves laden with ancient tomes. At the center stood a massive four-poster bed, its curtains partially drawn. And there she was, Seline, the alpha vampire queen. Despite her illness, her beauty was otherworldly. Her silver-white hair cascaded around her like moonlight made tangible. Her skin, though now ashen, still held an ethereal quality. When she turned to face him, Adrien felt the full force of her presence. 8 centuries of power and knowledge concentrated in eyes dark as the space between stars. So she spoke, her voice surprisingly strong despite her evident weakness. "You are the one who bears the lunar flame." Adrien found himself kneeling, not from fear or deference, but from a strange sense of recognition, as though his soul remembered something his mind did not. "My name is Adrien Vasilelescu, Your Majesty. I've come to offer my blood." Seline's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Many have offered their blood, Blacksmith. Why should yours succeed where theirs failed?" Before Adrien could answer, the mark on his wrist began to glow with a silvery light, responding to the queen's presence. The room fell silent as even Seline's eyes widened in astonishment. "Perhaps," she whispered, "there is truth in ancient prophecies after all." The chamber fell silent, save for the gentle crackling of the candles. Adrien remained kneeling, his birthmark pulsing with an ethereal glow that cast strange shadows across the ornate floor. Queen Selena's gaze remained fixed on the crescent moon and flame symbol. Centuries of carefully maintained composure, momentarily shattered by genuine astonishment. "Captain Azet," the queen spoke without shifting her gaze. "Summon Ella's and necromancer Valerian immediately." The silver-haired captain bowed and departed swiftly, leaving Adrien alone with the alpha vampire queen. Despite her weakened state, Seline rose from her bed with deliberate grace, her movements betraying only the slightest tremor. Her midnight blue gown whispered across the stone floor as she approached him. "Stand," she commanded. Adrien obeyed, finding himself nearly at eye level with the queen. This close, he could see the network of darkened veins beneath her translucent skin, evidence of the mysterious malady consuming her from within. "You do not fear me," Selena observed, circling him slowly. "It wasn't a question. I respect what you are." Adrien replied carefully, "But no, I do not fear you." A sound escaped her lips, something between a laugh and a sigh. "Curious. Most mortals can barely speak in my presence. Their hearts betray them, pounding with terror." She paused before him, "Yet yours beat steady as a war drum. Perhaps because I didn't come here to take from you, but to give." Her eyes narrowed. "And what do you know of giving, Blacksmith?" What could a village boy possibly understand about sacrifice? Before Adrien could respond, the chamber doors opened to admit two figures. The first was an elderly vampire with aristocratic features and eyes that had witnessed millennia. The second figure seemed to absorb the light around him. Necromancer Valerian, his milky eyes fixed on Adrien despite his apparent blindness. By the old Pax, Elias whispered, seeing the glowing birthmark. "It cannot be." Valerian moved forward with unsettling swiftness, his cold fingers grasping Adrien's wrist. The lunar flame bloodline was extinguished during the Great Purge. We made certain of it. Adrien flinched at the necromancer's touch but didn't pull away. "My mother said our bloodline was old. She never explained what it meant. Your mother knew to hide it." "Well," Valerian replied, his voice like stone, grinding against stone. "Your ancestors were neither vampire nor human, but guardians, keepers of the balance between realms. When vampires rose to power, the guardians became inconvenient." Seline's expression hardened. "That history is complex, Valerian. The guardians chose their fate when they turned against us." "Did they?" The necromancer challenged, releasing Adrien's wrist. "Or did we force their hand when we claimed dominion over all-night creatures?" The tension between them crackled like lightning. Centuries of unspoken history filling the room. Adrien sensed he had stumbled into a conflict far older and deeper than he could comprehend. Elias broke the charred silence. "What matters now is whether his blood can heal you, your majesty." The Codex Sanguinis was specific. Only freely given blood with the light of life can cure the immortal's bane. Seline returned to her bed, sitting with regal posture despite her obvious fatigue. "Then let us put it to the test." She extended her hand toward Adrien. "Come." Adrien approached, hyper-aware of every step across the ancient stones. The queen's bed was elevated on a dais, forcing him to climb 3 steps to reach her. The symbolism wasn't lost on him, a commoner ascending to the level of royalty, if only temporarily. "Your wrist," she instructed. Adrien hesitated, not from fear, but from the strange sense that once this line was crossed, nothing would ever be the same. Nevertheless, he extended his arm. The marked wrist upturned. Selena took his hand in both of hers. Her touch was cool, but not the deathly cold of folklore. It felt more like marble warmed by distant sunlight. "I have tasted the blood of kings and conquerors," she said softly. "Of saints and sinners across 8 centuries. What secrets does yours hold, I wonder?" Without further preamble, her fangs extended, elegant and sharp as finest daggers. Adrien felt a momentary sting as they pierced his wrist precisely where the crescent moon birthmark glowed brightest. The effect was instantaneous and extraordinary. As the first drop of Adrien's blood touched Seline's tongue, a visible shudder passed through her entire body. The darkened veins beneath her skin began to pulse with golden light, as though his blood carried liquid sunshine through her immortal system. Her eyes widened, their darkness momentarily illuminated from within. Elias and Valerian watched in astonishment as color returned to the queen's face. The ashen gray gave way to luminous alabaster, her silver hair regaining its legendary luster with each passing second. Adrien felt a curious sensation, not weakness or pain as he'd expected, but a warm current flowing between them, as though an ancient circuit had been completed. His birthmark blazed brighter, its light stretching tendrils across their joined arms. When Seline finally withdrew her fangs, she looked transformed. Though she had taken only a few small sips, the change was remarkable. The queen, who had been dying minutes ago, now radiated power and vitality. "Impossible," Illas whispered. Valerian nodded slowly. "Not impossible," prophesied. Adrien swayed slightly, but not from blood loss, from the overwhelming sense of destiny crashing over him. Seline steadied him with a hand that now felt warm against his skin. "What you carry in your veins," she said with newfound strength in her voice, "is beyond precious. It is miraculous." Before Adrien could respond, the chamber doors burst open without ceremony. Baron Dravik strode in, his aristocratic features contorted with outrage. "Is this a jest?" he demanded, gesturing dismissively at Adrien. "While nobles and warriors wait to offer their ancient bloodlines, you entertain a common blacksmith." Seline rose to her full height, power emanating from her like heat from a forge. Baron Dravik instinctively took a step back, belatedly realizing his error. "This common blacksmith has accomplished what your ancient bloodline could not." Baron, she replied, her voice deadly calm. His blood flows through me now, and with it my strength returns. The Baron's eyes darted from Selina to Adrien, disbelief giving way to calculation. Then the decree stands fulfilled. He has earned the castle and its treasures. Indeed, Selene confirmed, turning to Adrien. According to my word, all this is now yours. Adrien looked around at the opulent chamber, at the vastness of the castle that surrounded them, and felt only bewilderment. I didn't come for a castle, your majesty. So then why did you come? She asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Because Adrien hesitated, searching for words to explain what he himself didn't fully understand. Because when I heard you were dying, I felt called to help, as though something in me recognized something in you. The queen studied him with an intensity that seemed to peer into his very soul. In that moment, something passed between them, a recognition deeper than words could express. The silence was broken by Valerian's raspy voice. The connection has begun. His blood has not merely healed you temporarily, my queen. It has bound you. Bound? Adrien and Seline asked simultaneously. The Codex speaks of such bonds, the necromancer explained. When guardian blood freely mixes with alpha vampire essence, it creates a connection beyond physical healing. Your strengths, your vulnerabilities, they are now shared. Baron Dravk's face darkened with this revelation. A peasant bound to our queen. This is an abomination. No, countered Elias, who had been quietly observing. This is salvation. Without his blood, our queen would perish before the winter solstice. As they argued, Adrien felt a strange sensation, a shadowy awareness of Seline's emotions filtering into his consciousness. Her confusion, her relief, her lingering pain, and beneath it all, a profound loneliness that echoed across centuries. From her sudden sharp glance, he knew she felt something similar, a window opening between their minds. Enough, Seline commanded, silencing the debate. Adrien Vasilelescu has saved my life. He has declined the castle as reward. Whatever connection now exists between us will be addressed privately. She turned to Adrien. You will remain here as my guest while we determine the nature of this bond. It wasn't a request, but Adrien found he had no desire to refuse the mystery of his birthmark, of his heritage, of this unexpected connection to the alpha vampire queen. All of it demanded answers he could only find within these castle walls. As you wish, your majesty, he replied, bowing slightly. What neither of them voiced was the unnerving certainty that they both felt that fate had just dealt a hand neither of them had anticipated in a game with rules written in blood. Dawn broke over Castle Lunaroth, though little natural light penetrated its ancient walls. Adrien awoke in chambers more luxurious than any he had ever known. A spacious room with tapestries depicting woodland hunts, furniture carved from dark wood, polished to a mirror shine, and a bed that seemed to swallow him in comfort. It was a far cry from his straw mattress in Ravenbrook. He sat up, touching the bandage around his wrist where Selene had fed. The wound had already healed, leaving only a faint mark alongside his birthmark. More surprising was how vigorous he felt. Stories told of victims left weak and pallid after vampire feedings. Yet he felt stronger than before, as though some dormant energy had awakened within him. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened to reveal a young woman, human, not vampire, carrying fresh clothing. The queen requests your presence in the Eastern Library once you're dressed, sir, she said, placing the garments on a nearby chair. I'm Lily, assigned to attend to your needs during your stay. Adrien nodded, still adjusting to being served. Thank you, Lily. How long have you been at the castle? Born here, sir. My mother serves in the kitchens, my father in the stables. 3 generations of my family have served the queen. This contradicted everything Adrien had believed about life in Seline's domain. You're not afraid of the vampires. Lily looked surprised. The queen's law protects her human servants. We give monthly blood tribute, just a small amount, but in return, we receive education, protection, and payment beyond what any village could offer. Practices forbidden after the Treaty of 7 Moons. Adrien struggled to reconcile this information with his simple upbringing. My mother was a midwife and herbalist. She helped people, healed them. She never spoke of magic or rituals, yet she hid your birthmark and preserved this book. Elias observed. She knew enough to protect you. Before Adrien could respond, the library doors burst open. Baron Dravik entered, followed by a striking female vampire Adrien hadn't seen before. Her beauty was severe, her black hair arranged in an elaborate style that emphasized the sharpness of her features. "Your Majesty," Baron Dravik announced with barely concealed satisfaction. "Lady Lilith has arrived from the Western Territories with urgent news." Seline straightened, weariness evident in her posture. "Lady Lilith, your journey must be important to bring you so far from your husband's court." The newcomer offered a smile that never reached her eyes. "When I heard of your illness, dear sister, how could I not come? Family must stand together in times of crisis." Sister Adrien felt Seline's emotions spike through their bond, a complex mixture of affection, suspicion, and old pain. "How thoughtful," Selene replied coolly. "Yet I find myself much recovered." Lady Lilith's gaze shifted to Adrien, her assessment predatory. "So I've heard. A miraculous cure from unexpected quarters." She approached him with fluid grace. "And this is the savior, immortal with guardian blood. How quaint." Adrien felt an instinctive desire to step back, but held his ground. "I'm Adrien Vasilelescu, my lady. He speaks," she exclaimed with mock surprise and with such confidence. "Tell me, little guardian, do you understand what you've stumbled into? The power struggles that have shaped vampire politics for centuries." "Lilith," Seline warned. But Lady Lilith continued, circling Adrien. "Did you know, mortal, that my sister and I once vied for the Alpha throne? That I led the last great rebellion against her rule?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. 300 years I've waited for her power to wane. 300 years planning my return." Adrien felt Seline's anger flaring through their bond. The queen stepped forward, placing herself between them. "You reveal your hand too early, sister," Seline said, her voice dangerously soft. "Always your weakness." Lady Lilith laughed. "The sound like breaking crystal, not revelation, dear sister. Declaration. Your court already whispers about this bond with a mortal. How it diminishes you compromises your authority. The nobles grow restless." "Thaubles have always been restless," Elias interjected. "Yet her majesty's reign endures." Perhaps Baron Dravik added smoothly. "It would be prudent to demonstrate that the queen remains uncompromised. The Blood Moon Festival approaches, traditionally a time to display your power before the court." Adrien sensed the trap closing around them. Through their bond, he felt Seline's calculation, weighing options, considering consequences. Indeed, she finally agreed. The Blood Moon Festival will proceed as tradition demands. The court will see their queen at full strength. Lady Lilith's smile widened. "Wonderful. I look forward to the celebrations." She cast a final appraising glance at Adrien. "Bring your pet guardian. It should be educational for him." After they departed, Selena's composure faltered momentarily. She placed a hand on the table to steady herself, and Adrien felt a wave of weakness wash through their bond. "The healing effect of your blood is already fading," Elias observed with concern. "How often will you need to feed?" Adrien asked quietly. Selene's dark eyes met his. "Daily. If the pattern holds, the illness retreats but doesn't surrender." "Then do it," Adrien offered, extending his wrist. "Take what you need." "You don't understand what you're offering," she replied, a rare vulnerability in her voice. "Each feeding strengthens our bond. Soon we may not be able to shield our thoughts from one another. Your life will become entwined with mine, your freedom compromised." Adrien considered this, remembering the glimpses of loneliness he'd sensed within her. 8 centuries of power and isolation. "I came here to help you," he said simply. "That hasn't changed." For a moment, something like wonder crossed Seline's face, as though his willingness to sacrifice was a mystery she couldn't fathom. Then her royal mask returned, and she nodded once. "Very well, but not here." She led him to an adjoining chamber, more intimate than the library, with a single window overlooking the vast forest surrounding the castle. As the door closed behind them, Selene turned to him with an intensity that made his heart quicken. "Before I take your blood again, you should know what approaches. The Blood Moon Festival is a 3-night celebration of vampire heritage. On the final night, I must participate in the hunt, a ritual display of vampire prowess and power." "What does this hunt involve?" Adrien asked, though he suspected the answer. "Traditionally, criminals condemned to death are released into the forest. The royal court hunts them, and I make the final kill before the assembled nobility." Her eyes held his steadily. "My sister's presence complicates matters. She will look for any sign of weakness, any hesitation." Adrien, absorbed this, trying to reconcile the ruthless tradition with the complex being before him. And if you refuse, then I demonstrate the very weakness Lilith seeks to exploit. The court would fracture, challenges would emerge, and centuries of relative peace would end in bloodshed. Far greater than the ritual hunt, the moral complexity of her position wasn't lost on Adrien. The queen was both ruler and prisoner of the society she had helped create. I understand, he said finally. Seline studied him, clearly sensing his conflicted emotions through their bond. Do you truly? Instead of answering, Adrien rolled up his sleeve, revealing the crescent moon birthmark. Take what you need, your majesty. This time, when her fangs pierced his skin, Adrien was prepared for the sensation. The brief sting followed by a warm current flowing between them. What he wasn't prepared for was the flood of memories that suddenly rushed into his mind. A village burning in medieval Europe. Seline, newly turned, watching in horror as her maker slaughtered her family. Centuries of learning to survive in a world that feared her kind. The loneliness of immortality as she watched mortals she grew fond of wither and die. The weight of a crown she never sought but couldn't relinquish without causing chaos. When Selena withdrew, her eyes wide with shock, Adrien knew she had experienced something similar. Glimpses of his life, his struggles, his dreams. The bond grows stronger, she whispered. Soon there will be no secrets between us. And in that moment, neither could say whether this prospect brought dread or relief. Castle Lunaroth transformed as preparations for the Blood Moon Festival intensified. Human servants hung crimson banners from the battlements, while vampire artisans crafted elaborate ice sculptures that never melted. A display of magic that left Adrien mesmerized. The Great Hall, rarely used, according to Elias, was being prepared for the culminating feast that would follow the hunt. 4 days had passed since Adrien's arrival. 4 days of twice daily feedings, each deepening the bond between himself and Seline. The queen's strength had returned almost completely, though necromancer Valerian warned that without Adrien's blood, the illness would quickly resurface. Adrien stood at the window of his chambers, watching vampire nobles arrive from distant territories. Their carriages were dark and ornate, pulled by horses with unnaturally red eyes. Lady Lilith had taken residence in the western wing, surrounding herself with supporters who eyed Adrien with undisguised contempt whenever he crossed their path. A knock at his door revealed Lily, his assigned attendant, carrying a package wrapped in black silk. From Her Majesty, she explained, placing it on his bed. For tonight's opening ceremony. Inside lay clothing more magnificent than anything Adrien had yet worn, a formal suit of midnight blue with silver threading that seemed to capture and hold moonlight. The collar and cuffs featured subtle embroidery depicting the same crescent moon and flame as his birthmark. The queen had this created specially, Lily added with a hint of awe. The royal seamstress worked day and night. After Lily departed, Adrien dressed carefully, marveling at how perfectly everything fit through their strengthening bond. He sensed Seline's growing anxiety beneath her calm exterior. Tonight would be her first public appearance since her illness, and the first time the court would see her with Adrien. A soft mental nudge, like a tap on the shoulder, but within his mind, alerted him that Selene was approaching. This new development in their bond had emerged yesterday, allowing them to sense each other's proximity. The door opened without a knock. Seline entered, resplendent in a gown that seemed woven from the night sky itself. Deep blue fabric embedded with countless tiny crystals that shimmered with her every movement. Her silver-white hair was arranged in an intricate style, adorned with a delicate silver crown. "You clean up well for a blacksmith," she observed, her eyes moving appreciatively over his appearance. "And you look." Adrien searched for words adequate to describe her unearthly beauty, finally settling on like the night-made flesh. A smile touched her lips, a genuine one rare in Adrien's experience. Through their bond, he felt her pleased surprise at the compliment. "I've come to prepare you," she said, her expression growing serious. "Tonight's ceremony is steeped in tradition and protocol. The slightest misstep could be exploited by Lilith and her faction." "What role am I to play?" Adrien asked. "That of my blood bonded," she replied carefully. "An ancient position rarely seen in modern vampire society, neither servant nor equal but something unique. A mortal whose blood sustains and strengthens an alpha vampire. How should I behave? With dignity. Do not bow to anyone but me. Make no apologies for your human nature. And most importantly, her eyes lock with his, show no fear. Vampires respect strength above all else. Adrien nodded, absorbing her instructions. Through their bond, he felt her sending him something else, a current of confidence and reassurance. "There's something else you should know," Seline continued, moving to stand beside him at the window. "The lunar flame birthmark you bear. It marks you as the last of a guardian bloodline that was thought extinct. Guardians once stood as mediators between the supernatural world and humanity, maintaining balance through blood magic and ancient rites. Why were they hunted to extinction?" Seline's expression grew distant. "Vampires and guardians coexisted peacefully for centuries. Then came the blood plague, a disease similar to what afflicts me now. It decimated vampire populations across Europe. Some vampire elders believed guardians were responsible, that they had created the plague to control our numbers. Were they? No, Selina said firmly, but fear and prejudice rarely yield to truth. The Vampire Council ordered the extermination of all guardian bloodlines. She hesitated. I opposed this decision but was overruled. It was before I ascended as Alpha Queen. Adrien felt the weight of this history settling between them, and now history repeats itself. Another plague, another guardian. Perhaps the universe has a sense of irony, Seline murmured, or perhaps it offers a chance for redemption. Their contemplation was interrupted by the castle bells tolling sunset, signaling the beginning of the festival. Seline straightened, her regal mask falling into place. It's time. Remember, reveal nothing of your uncertainty. To them, you must appear as confident in your position as I am in mine. Together, they walked through corridors now filled with vampire nobility from across Europe. Conversations hushed as they passed, eyes following their progress with open curiosity and barely concealed speculation. Adrien kept his gaze forward, his posture straight. Channeling the confidence, Seline continued to send through their bond. The great hall of Castle Lunaroth had been transformed. Hundreds of black candles floated in midair, their flames burning blue instead of gold. The stone walls were adorned with ancient vampire sigils that seemed to pulse with inner light. At the far end stood twin thrones upon a raised dais, one obsidian black, one silver. As they entered, a hush fell over the assembled court. Elias stepped forward from his position near the thrones. Her Royal Majesty, Seline Alpha Queen of the Night Court, sovereign of the 7 vampire territories, keeper of the Blood Covenant, he announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. And Adrien Vasilelescu, bearer of the lunar flame, blood-bonded to the Queen. Adrien felt hundreds of vampire gazes upon him, some curious, some hostile, some calculating. Near the front of the assembly stood Lady Lilith, wearing a gown of crimson that contrasted sharply with Seline's midnight blue. Beside her, Baron Drac watched with barely concealed disdain. With measured steps, Seline led Adrien to the dais. She took her place on the obsidian throne, gesturing for him to occupy the silver one beside her, a statement that could not be misinterpreted. Through their bond, Adrien felt her fierce determination beneath her calm exterior. "My loyal subjects," Seline addressed the court, her voice clear and strong. "We gather to celebrate the blood moon as our kind has done for millennia. For 3 nights, we honor our heritage, our power, and our endurance." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. "Some of you have traveled far, concerned by rumors of my illness," she continued. "As you can see, such concerns were premature." Lady Lilith stepped forward, offering a deep curtsy that somehow managed to appear mocking. "We rejoice in your recovery, dear sister, though many wonder at the unusual means by which it was achieved." Her gaze shifted pointedly to Adrien. "The means are as old as vampire lore itself." Seline countered smoothly. "The blood bond was practiced by the first ones long before our current customs evolved." "Indeed," Lady Lilith agreed with false sweetness, though in those days blood-bonded humans were kept as property, not seated upon thrones. Tension crackled through the hall. Adrien felt Seline's anger flare through their connection, quickly controlled and channeled into icy determination. "Times evolve, sister, as must we. Adrien Vasilelescu's blood carries the lunar flame, a power our ancestors respected even as they feared it. His position reflects that ancient respect." Before Lady Lilith could respond, Necromancer Valerian emerged from the shadows at the edge of the hall. His milky eyes seemed to glow in the candle light as he raised his hands. "The blood moon rises," he enedoned. "Let the festival commence with the ritual of remembrance." At his words, the floating candles descended slowly, arranging themselves in a vast circle at the center of the hall. Vampire nobles moved to stand around this circle, their faces solemn. Adrien remained seated as Seline rose and joined the circle. Through their bond, she sent him a clear message. "Watch and learn. This ritual honors our dead." Valerian began chanting in an ancient language that made Adrien's birthmark tingle. As the chant continued, each vampire in the circle bit their own wrist, allowing a single drop of blood to fall upon the stone floor. Where each drop landed, a small flame appeared, not red or orange, but a deep pulsing purple. Soon, hundreds of these strange flames illuminated the hall from below, casting eerie shadows across the faces of the participants. "We remember those lost to time, to hunters, to the sun's wrath," Valerian proclaimed. "Though their bodies are dust, their essence remains in our collective blood." The flames began to dance and swirl, coalescing into vague humanoid shapes that moved with ghostly grace around the circle. Adrien watched in astonishment as these apparitions, memories made manifest through blood magic, enacted scenes from vampire history. He saw ancient battles against human crusaders, vampires defending their territories with supernatural strength. He witnessed the signing of peace treaties with werewolf clans, the establishment of the first vampire courts in medieval Europe, and finally, most disturbing of all, he saw guardians being hunted, men and women with birthmarks like his own fighting with nature-based magic against overwhelming vampire forces. The last vision showed a female guardian, her face disturbingly similar to his mother's protecting a small child as vampire hunters closed in. Before the scene concluded, her eyes met Adrien's across the centuries, filled with defiance and hope. The apparitions faded as Valerian concluded the ritual. The normal lighting returned to the hall, and conversations resumed, though many eyes turned curiously toward Adrien. Seline returned to her throne, her expression unreadable to the court, but her emotions clear through their bond, a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "You saw them," she said quietly. "Your ancestors. They looked like my mother," Adrien replied equally low. "The last woman especially. The blood remembers even when our minds forget." Seline's gaze swept across the hall. "Tonight you witnessed vampire history through our eyes. Tomorrow the hunt preparations begin." Adrien felt a chill at the reminder. These criminals who are hunted. Who chooses them? Traditionally, the royal court selects from prisoners already condemned for serious crimes. Murder, treason, the worst offenses. Before Adrien could respond, Lady Lilith approached the dais, her crimson gown shimmering in the candlelight. "A magnificent remembrance ritual," she commented, "though I noticed the visions conveniently omitted certain controversial chapters of our history." "The blood shows what it will," Seline replied coolly. Lady Lilith's attention shifted to Adrien. "And what did you think of our little history lesson, Guardian? Did you enjoy watching your ancestors fall?" Adrien met her gaze steadily, remembering Selina's advice to show no weakness. "I saw both sides fighting for what they believed was right. History is rarely simple, my lady." A flash of surprise crossed Lady Lilith's face before her mask of contempt returned. "How diplomatic. One might almost forget you're a village blacksmith, and one might almost forget you led a failed rebellion against your sister," Adrien countered, feeling Seline's startled approval through their bond. "Yet here we are, both guests at her festival." Lady Lilith's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You allow your pet remarkable freedom, sister." "Adrien speaks with my voice," Seline replied, an edge of warning in her tone. "Remember that, Lilith." With a final poisonous glare at Adrien, Lady Lilith rejoined her supporters. Through their bond, Adrien felt Seline's concern beneath her outward composure. "She will not forget that exchange," the Queen warned mentally, their bond now strong enough for direct thought communication. "I couldn't show weakness," Adrien responded the same way. "No, you couldn't," Seline agreed. "But be wary. My sister's vengeance is both creative and patient." As the night progressed, vampire nobles approached the dais to pay respects to their queen. Some regarded Adrien with open curiosity, others with barely veiled hostility. He observed their interactions carefully, noting the complex web of alliances and rivalries that defined vampire politics. Later, as black-led servants cleared space for the evening's entertainment, vampire musicians playing instruments that seemed partly alive, Adrien found himself approached by Captain Urbette. "You've caused quite a stir, Guardian," she said quietly. "Half the court believes you've enchanted the Queen. The other half thinks you're her puppet. And what do you believe, Captain?" Her violet eyes assessed him thoughtfully. "I believe you are exactly what she needs, though neither of you fully understands why yet." Before Adrien could press her for clarification, a commotion at the entrance to the great hall drew everyone's attention. The massive door swung open to admit a procession of figures in hooded robes the color of dried blood. Together they made their way through the castle, down grand staircases, and through corridors now lined with excited vampire courtiers. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. The hunt was not merely justice or sport, but a connection to vampire heritage, a reminder of their nature as apex predators. Outside, torches illuminated the massive courtyard where the vampire nobility had gathered in their finest hunting attire. Lady Lilith stood at the center, resplendent in crimson leather that caught the firelight like fresh blood. Beside her, Baron Drac conversed with a group of influential elders, gesturing occasionally toward the forest. Seline's arrival caused a ripple of excitement. The Queen moved with measured steps to the raised platform where the hunt would be officially commenced. Adrien followed, aware of the calculating gazes that tracked their every movement. The 3 prisoners were brought forward, their hands bound before them with silver chains that gleamed in the torchlight. The burly defender stood proud, shoulders squared despite his imminent fate. The healer woman maintained her serene demeanor, while the young guardian descendant trembled slightly but kept his head high. Lady Lilith approached the platform, offering a formal bow to her sister. "The hunt participants are presented for your inspection, Your Majesty. All have confessed to their crimes and understand the terms. Reach the sanctuary stone beyond the northern ridge by dawn and earn their freedom." So, what she doesn't mention, Selin's voice whispered in Adrien's mind, is that the sanctuary stone lies 15 miles through dense forest, and vampire hunters can move at supernatural speed. Aloud, Celine addressed the gathered court. "Tonight, we honor ancient tradition. The hunt reconnects us to our nature while serving justice. As Alpha, I claim the final kill as my right." The court murmured approval. Adrien noticed the blood oracles had taken positions at the edge of the gathering, their hooded forms unnaturally still amid the excited crowd. Necromancer Valerian stepped forward, raising his arms. "Release the prey. Let them run for 1 hour before the hunters follow. May the worthy find sanctuary and the guilty meet justice." The prisoners' bonds were removed. Guards escorted them to the forest edge, giving each a small pack containing basic supplies, a water skin, a knife, a flint for fire. Such provisions were part of the tradition, maintaining the illusion that escape was possible. As the prisoners disappeared into the treine, Adrien felt Selin's conflict through their bond. Her instinctual anticipation of the hunt wearing with her growing discomfort with its purpose. The vampire court broke into smaller groups, discussing strategy and forming hunting parties. Lady Lilith approached her smile predatory. "Will your pet guardian join the hunt, sister? Or does he lack the stomach for our ways?" "Adrien remains at my side," Selene replied coolly. "Of course, the blood bond must be maintained." Lilith's gaze shifted to Adrien. "Though I wonder how he feels, watching those who share his sympathies hunted for sport. Justice and sport are not the same, Lady Lilith." Adrien responded evenly, though I understand some might confuse them. Her eyes narrowed at the barb. Bold words from one who has yet to witness a true hunt. "By dawn, we shall see if your convictions remain so firm." The hour passed with agonizing slowness. Adrien and Selene remained on the platform, observing the court's mounting excitement. Through their bond, he felt her growing tension and sensed her feeding schedule approaching. His blood would soon be necessary to maintain her strength. "You need to feed before the hunt begins," he said quietly. Seline nodded almost imperceptibly. "Not here, the forest pavilion awaits us." As the hour neared its end, Selena addressed the court once more. "The hunt begins at the sound of the horn. Remember our laws, the prey must be given fair pursuit. Magic may be used to track, but the kill must be physical. I will await the survivors or make the final kill." At the northern ridge, Valerian raised an ancient horn carved from black wood and bound with silver. Its deep, resonant call echoed across the courtyard and into the forest beyond. The vampire hunters moved as one, flowing into the trees with supernatural speed and grace. Seline and Adrien walked toward a small pavilion that had been erected at the forest edge, a private space for the Alpha to prepare. Inside, lanterns cast a warm glow over comfortable furnishings. As soon as they were alone, Seline's composed facade cracked slightly. "The young guardian, did you sense it? His birthmark?" "Yes. It's different from mine, but similar enough to confirm Valerian's theory about surviving bloodlines." "Lilith found him deliberately," Seline said, pacing the confined space. "She's forcing my hand, making me choose between upholding vampire tradition by killing someone of your kind or showing leniency and appearing weak." Adrien stepped closer, rolling up his sleeve. "You need strength for whatever comes next. Take what you need." Seline hesitated only briefly before accepting his offered wrist. As her fangs pierced his skin, their bond flared with renewed intensity. Memories and emotions flowed between them. Seline's centuries of isolation, Adrien's determination to forge his own path, their shared sense of standing apart from their respective societies. When she withdrew, her eyes seemed to glow with renewed vitality. "Whatever happens tonight," she said softly, "know that you have changed me, Adrien Vasilelescu. Whether that change brings salvation or destruction remains to be seen." Adrien touched her face gently, a gesture that would have been unthinkable days ago. The oracle spoke of a choice. "I believe that choice belongs to both of us." In the distance, they heard the first howls of the hunt, vampires on the trail of their prey. Seline straightened, resolve settling over her features. "It's time. We travel to the northern ridge. As Alpha, I must be present for the conclusion, whether it ends in kill or sanctuary." As they stepped back into the night, Adrien touched the small vial hidden within his hunting garments, a mixture prepared under Valerian's guidance. Combining his guardian blood with ancient herbs mentioned in his mother's book, a protection against what might come, or perhaps, if the oracle's prophecy held true, the key to a choice that would change vampire destiny forever. Together they entered the forest, following a path illuminated by floating orbs of ghostly blue light. The hunt had begun, and with it, the inevitable confrontation that had been building since Adrien first offered his blood to save a dying queen. The northern forest was a world transformed beneath the blood moon. Ancient trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches intertwining overhead to form cathedral-like arches. Mist curled around exposed roots and clung to the undergrowth, dampening sound, yet somehow amplifying tension. The floating orbs of spectral light that marked the Alpha's path cast elongated shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Adrien and Seline traveled in silence, their bond humming with shared awareness. Distant howls and occasional flashes of movement through the trees tracked the progress of the hunt. Through their connection, Adrien sensed Selena's conflicted emotions, the instinctual excitement of the chase wearing with her growing discomfort with its purpose. "They've caught the first one," she said suddenly, her head tilting as though listening to sounds beyond human hearing. "The defender, the one who killed the tax collector." Adrien felt a pang of regret but not surprise. Who made the kill? Baron Dravk's hunting party. They're celebrating near the eastern ravine. They continued northward, following a path that grew steeper as they approached the ridge. Twice they passed evidence of the fleeing prisoners, disturbed underbrush, a dropped water flask, a smear of blood on tree bark. Each sign made the hunt more real, more immediate to Adrien. "The second one is still running," Seline noted. "The healer woman, she's proving more resourceful than expected. And the guardian descendant." A flicker of surprise passed through their bond. "Strangely, I sense no pursuit of him yet. It's as though the hunters are deliberately avoiding his trail." Adrien understood immediately. "They're saving him for you. Lilith wants you to make that kill specifically." "Yes," Seline agreed grimly. "A public statement about where my loyalties lie." They reached a clearing where a small stone structure stood, an ancient hunting pavilion used by vampire nobility for centuries. Inside, refreshments awaited the Alpha. Goblets of blood kept warm by magical means, comfortable seating, and a changing screen where formal attire for the post-hunt celebration hung in readiness. "We have perhaps an hour before the court begins to gather here," Seline explained, pouring herself a goblet of blood. The hunt concludes at this ridge, where I traditionally await either escapes reaching sanctuary or make the final kill myself. Adrien moved to the pavilion's entrance, looking out across the moonlit forest below. From this elevation, he could see the pattern of the hunt torches and magical lights marking the positions of various vampire hunting parties as they converged on their remaining prey. "Where is the sanctuary stone?" he asked. Seline pointed to a flat area about 50 yards from the pavilion. "There. If a prisoner reaches it before dawn, their life is spared. Has anyone ever made it? 3 times in 8 centuries, she repeated her earlier answer. I honored the tradition each time, though the court was displeased. Adrien studied the stone, a simple granite monolith etched with ancient vampire runes, and Lilith knows the importance of this hunt. She's positioned her pieces carefully. She always was the better strategist, Seline admitted, a hint of woeful admiration in her voice. I ruled through strength and conviction. She plotted with patience and foresight. A commotion in the forest below interrupted their conversation. Through the trees, Adrien spotted the healer woman running with surprising speed for a human. Behind her, a hunting party led by Lady Lilith herself closed the distance with supernatural grace. "There, hurrying her toward us," Seline observed tensely. Indeed, the pursuit seemed calculated to drive the healer directly toward the pavilion rather than the sanctuary stone nearby. As the woman broke through the tree-line into the open ridge area, Adrien could see her face clearly, determined, despite her exhaustion, still maintaining the calm dignity he'd noticed in the dungeon. Lady Lilith emerged from the forest seconds later, followed by a dozen vampire courtiers in hunting attire. She slowed deliberately, allowing the healer to continue running across the open ground. "The traditional final kill," Lilith called out, her voice carrying across the ridge. "As is your ride, sister." The healer woman spotted the sanctuary stone and changed direction, making a desperate dash toward it. She was perhaps 20 yards from safety when Seline emerged from the pavilion. Her movement so swift she seemed to materialize in the woman's path. The forest fell silent. Vampire hunters emerged from various directions, forming a loose circle around the confrontation. Even the night creatures seemed to hold their breath as the alpha vampire queen stood face to face with the exhausted human healer. Through their bond, Adrien felt Seline's inner conflict reaching its peak. 8 centuries of tradition and authority balanced against the emerging conscience. Their connection had awakened in her. "Your crime was healing humans from vampire feedings," Seline stated, her voice carrying to all present. The healer straightened her spine, meeting the queen's gaze directly. "My crime was compassion, Your Majesty. I'll not apologize for it." Murmurs rippled through the gathered vampires. Such defiance before the alpha was unprecedented. Seline's hand moved to the ceremonial silver dagger at her hip. "The laws of vampire society are clear. Those who interfere with our feeding rights threaten our very existence. Yet you yourself are sustained by a human healer." Now, the woman replied, glancing toward Adrien, "Is that not interference as well?" The murmurs grew louder. Lady Lilith's smile widened, sensing the trap closing around her sister. Adrien felt the precise moment when Seline made her decision. Through their bond came a sudden clarity, a crystallization of purpose that cut through her centuries of ingrained behavior. "The sanctuary stone lies there," Seline said, stepping aside. "Run." Shock rippled through the assembled court as the healer, after a moment of disbelief, dashed the remaining distance to the monolith. As her hands touched the ancient granite, a soft blue light encompassed her, the magical recognition of sanctuary achieved. Lady Lilith's expression darkened with fury. "You dishonor the hunt, sister. I honor its original purpose," Seline countered. "The worthy may find sanctuary. This woman's crime was healing, an act of compassion, not violence." Before Lilith could respond, new sounds emerged from the forest, urgent shouts and the clash of metal. From the trees stumbled the young guardian descendant, his clothing torn and bloody, pursued not by vampire hunters, but by something else entirely. "Which hunters?" Captain Urset's voice rang out as she burst from the forest, her sword drawn. They breached the eastern perimeter. Behind the fleeing guardian came a dozen men in dark clothing, adorned with religious symbols carrying weapons of silver and blessed steel. Mortal enemies of vampire kind who had somehow penetrated the castle's territory. They followed us from the village, gasped the young guardian as he reached the gathered vampires. They've hunted my bloodline for generations. Chaos erupted on the ridge. Vampire nobles prepared for ritual hunt, but not true battles scattered in confusion. The witch hunters, seeing themselves outnumbered but committed to their purpose, charged forward with the fervor of zealots. "Protect the court," Seline commanded, her voice cutting through the disorder. Vampire guards formed a defensive line, but the witch hunters had the advantage of surprise and specialized weapons. Adrien watched in horror as silver-tipped arrows found vampire targets. Though not immediately fatal to such powerful beings, the blessed silver caused wounds that wouldn't quickly heal. 3 vampire nobles fell, including one of Lilith's closest allies. Through the chaos, Adrien spotted Baron Dravik hanging back, a calculating look on his face as he observed the conflict without joining it. The pieces suddenly aligned in Adrien's mind. "He let them in," he said to Seline through their bond. "Dravik arranged this attack to coincide with the hunt when our defenses were spread thin." Seline's eyes narrowed as she reached the same conclusion. Not just Dravik. Look, across the battlefield, Lady Lilith was retreating toward the forest edge, making no move to defend her fellow vampires. Her expression held not fear, but anticipation, the look of someone watching a plan unfold exactly as designed. "A coup," Seline realized aloud. "Weaken my authority through the hunt, then eliminate enough of my supporters in this surprise attack to shift the court's balance of power." The young guardian descendant stumbled toward the sanctuary stone, clutching a bleeding wound in his side. Before he could reach it, one of the witch hunters took aim with a crossbow, the bolt flying true toward the boy's back. Adrien moved without thinking. Drawing on the blood magic Valerian had hastily taught him, he channeled energy through his birthmark. The crescent moon and flame blazed on his wrist as he thrust his hand forward, creating a shield of golden light that deflected the bolt in midair. The battlefield froze momentarily as all eyes turned to witness this display of guardian power. Magic thought lost for centuries. The young guardian reached the sanctuary stone, its blue protection enveloping him alongside the healer woman. Lady Lilith's voice cut through the stunned silence. "See how the Alpha Queen consorts with hedge wizards and human sympathizers while vampire nobles bleed. She has forgotten her nature, forgotten her duty to our kind." Several uncertain vampires shifted toward Lilith's position, clearly swayed by her words. The court was fracturing before Adrien's eyes, exactly as the conspirators had planned. Seline stepped forward, her posture radiating the full authority of 8 centuries of rule. "Is this your challenge then, sister? Not an honorable claim to leadership, but treachery and alliance with our ancient enemies." "There is nothing dishonorable in preserving vampire purity," Lilith countered. "You've been contaminated by human blood and human compassion. You spare our prey and protect guardians while true vampires die." The battle resumed around them, witch hunters clashing with vampire defenders. Through their bond, Adrien sensed Seline's strategic assessment. The court divided, her power base undermined. The very tradition she had upheld for centuries now being used against her. "I need your blood," she communicated mentally. "One last time before I make my stand." Adrien understood immediately. Moving through the chaos, he reached her side, offering his wrist without hesitation. As her fangs pierced his skin, he uncorked the vial he had prepared under Valerian's guidance, pouring its contents over their joined connection. The effect was immediate and extraordinary. The guardian blood mixture, enhanced by ancient ritual, created a visible current of golden energy that flowed between them. Their bond, already strong, transcended its previous limitations, becoming a conduit of shared power and purpose. Seline's eyes blazed with inner light as she straightened to her full height. When she spoke, her voice carried a resonance that silenced the entire ridge enough. The single word held such power that both vampires and witch hunters froze in their tracks. The very air seemed to vibrate with her authority. "For 8 centuries, I have ruled through strength and tradition," she continued, moving to the center of the ridge where all could see her. "I have preserved our ways while adapting to changing times. I have maintained peace between vampires and humans when others would have plunged us into endless war." Her gaze swept across the gathered court, lingering on those who had shifted their allegiance to Lilith. Tonight was meant to force a choice between cruelty and compassion, between what has always been and what could be. My sister believed she knew which path I would take. Lady Lilith stepped forward, her confidence still intact despite the unraveling of her immediate plan. You've already chosen, sister. You've chosen humans over your own kind. You've chosen weakness over strength. No, Seline countered. I've chosen evolution over extinction. With deliberate movements, she removed the ceremonial dagger from her belt and raised it high. The blade caught the blood moon's light, seeming to absorb its crimson glow. The old ways serve their purpose, but the world changes. Humans grow more numerous, more organized, more dangerous to our kind each century. We cannot hunt them as we once did. We cannot rule through fear alone. Adaptation is not weakness. It is survival. Adrien moved to stand beside her, his birthmark still glowing with unleashed power. Through their bond flowed not just strength, but understanding, a shared vision of a possible future. The Guardian bloodlines were nearly exterminated because we feared their power. Seline continued. Yet here stands one who freely gave his blood to save me, not for reward or advantage, but from compassion, the very quality we have dismissed as human weakness. She turned to face Lilith directly. Your challenge fails, sister, not because I defeat you through superior strength, but because your vision leads only backward to a path that cannot sustain us. Baron Dravik, seeing the tide turning, attempted to slip away into the forest. Captain Urbet intercepted him with supernatural speed, her sword at his throat. The witch hunters, Seline demanded, paid to attack during the hunt, Dravik admitted, his aristocratic composure crumbling. Lady Lilith promised me the Western Territories once you fell. The remaining witch hunters, realizing their patrons had lost control of the situation, attempted to retreat. Vampire guards quickly surrounded them, though Seline raised a hand to prevent immediate execution. Take them to the dungeons, she ordered. Their fate will be decided by council, not by hunt. This unprecedented mercy toward traditional enemies caused another ripple of surprise through the court. Yet, Adrien noticed something significant. The younger vampires seemed approving, even relieved, while only the oldest looked truly scandalized. Lady Lilith, seeing her support evaporating, made one final desperate play. Moving with blinding speed, she lunged not at Seline, but at Adrien, her claws extended for his throat. If the blood bond breaks, you weaken, she snarled. But Selina was faster, intercepting her sister mid-leap. Their collision echoed across the ridge like thunder. When they separated, Seline held her ceremonial dagger against Lilith's heart. You would truly kill your own sister, Lilith whispered, genuine shock in her voice. No, Seline replied, lowering the blade. That is the difference you never understood. I would defeat you, constrain you, even banish you, but not destroy you. We share blood, Lilith, as all vampires do, as vampires and humans ultimately do. She stepped back, addressing the entire court. The Blood Moon Festival ends with this declaration. The hunt is no more. Justice will be served through council and law, not through ritual killing. Those who cannot accept this evolution are free to leave my territories, but those who stay will abide by this new covenant. The blood oracles moved forward from their observing positions, their ancient voices speaking in unison. The choice is made. The path is set. Power transformed through compassion prevails. Dawn approached, its first tentative light touching the eastern horizon. The vampires began to withdraw toward the castle. The night's events already becoming legend among whispered conversations. The two sanctuary claimants, the healer and the young guardian, stood uncertainly by the monolith that had saved their lives. Seline approached them, Adrien at her side. Your lives are yours, she told them. But I would offer you positions within my court, the healer as royal physician and you. She addressed the young guardian. As apprentice to Adrien in rediscovering your heritage, the boy looked at Adrien with wonder. There are others like us. Adrien touched his birthmark, still faintly glowing with activated power. Few, but perhaps more in hiding. Together we might rebuild what was lost. As the ridge cleared, only Seline and Adrien remained, watching the blood moon sink below the western horizon as dawn broke fully in the east. Your decree will face resistance, Adrien said quietly. Change never comes easily. No, Seline agreed, but it comes inevitably. Better to guide it than be destroyed by it. She turned to face him, her expression more open than he had ever seen it. The illness is gone completely. Valerian confirmed it when we performed the blood ritual. Whatever power your guardian blood carried, it has purged the Immortal's Bane from my system. Then you no longer need me, Adrien observed, testing her reaction through their bond. Her response came not in words but in emotion, a complex tapestry of feelings that transcended simple definitions. Respect, fascination, protective instinct, and beneath it all, something neither had expected to find. Genuine affection that bordered on love. The blood bond remains, she said simply. Not from necessity now, but from choice. Adrien took her hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable when he first entered Castle Lunaroth. When I came here, I offered my blood to heal you. I never imagined it would change both our worlds. Perhaps that was always the Guardian's true purpose, not to fight vampires or protect humans, but to bridge the divide between them. The castle awaited below, its dark spires now touched with golden morning light. Within its walls, a new order was already taking shape, one that neither Adrien nor Seline could fully envision, but would build together, one choice at a time. It seems I never needed your castle as a reward after all, Adrien said with a smile. No, Seline agreed, her fingers intertwining with his as they began the descent toward their shared future, just as I never needed a savior. What we found instead was something far more valuable. And what was that? He asked, though their bond already conveyed the answer. Seline's smile, rare, genuine, and unburdened by centuries of isolation, was like the dawn breaking after an endless night. Redemption, she said simply, through blood freely given and compassion freely offered, the most powerful magic of all. Together they walked toward the castle that had once represented fear to Adrien's village, now transformed into a symbol of evolution and possibility. Behind them, the blood moon faded completely. Its ancient ritual concluded not in death, but in transformation, and in the hearts of both vampire queen and guardian Blacksmith burned the certainty that their unexpected bond had not merely saved a life, but changed the course of their worlds forever. Want to see more stories like this? Then subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos.